obviously not had any pain or could get up. There's no way he could win. But slowly he got to his feet, and even though the race was now over, he began to hobble as best he could. Step and hop, step and hop. He was going to finish the race. Well, in the stands, his father was watching and saw his son fall. And a reporter for the Baltimore Sun, I don't know if he was near the father or whatever, reported on what next happened. Derek Redmond's father, at full sprint, raced for the exits, scrambled over chairs, benches, and barged his way past the security guards and raced out on the field to his son, put his arm around his son's waist, and his son put his arm around his father's shoulder, and together they made their way to the finish line. That's fellowship. That's support. And you and I need support in this life. Where do we find it? The church is designed to give that kind of support. Not the weak fellowship of going to fellowship hall and eating, as good as that is, but genuine support. The church is a web of support. If we're open to it, if we're willing to let Jesus Christ come in through others and support us. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching. They devoted themselves to fellowship. They devoted themselves, it says, to the breaking of bread. The phrase breaking of bread means communion. They're not just talking about eating. They're talking about having communion together on a regular basis. It was important to them because every time they had communion, it reminded them that Jesus Christ was present. Not just then, but it reminded them that Jesus Christ was present throughout their lives. And regularly they met to remind themselves Jesus Christ is present in our lives if we are open to what he wants to do, if we will let him in. J. Christie Wilson was a missionary to Afghanistan, and he was flying one day from the south of Afghanistan to the capital, Kabul. And when he was flying in the southern city, it was not a big airport, so you had to walk out on the tarmac and climb the stairs and get into the plane. This was a smaller plane, so there weren't very many steps. And all the passengers got in, the steward was there to greet them, and then the steward, was kind of watching his watch, and when it was time to take off, the steward closed the door and sat down and buckled in and waited for the pilot to turn on the engines and leave. Well, about that time, Dr. Wilson looked out the window and saw this man racing from the building and coming right up to their plane, and he began banging on the door. He could just reach the bottom part of the plane's side door. He began banging on the side door of the plane. And the steward, of course, was unmoved. He just sat in his seat with the seatbelt buckled because it was time to leave, and the man obviously was there late, and he wasn't going to open the door. The man on the outside kept banging on the door. The steward just kind of sat there. The man kept banging on the door, and finally the steward just kind of got upset and decided he'd see. So he opened the door just a crack and discovered that the man banging on the door was the pilot. The door to the cabin, the front cabin, had been closed, and the steward just assumed the pilot was in there. So they had to open the door and kind of drag him up from the elbows, pick him up the elbows, and get him into the plane. They weren't going anywhere without the pilot. When we take communion, you see, we remind ourselves in church that the pilot has never been missing. The pilot is always here. Jesus Christ is always present in our lives, and communion is simply the reminder and the sacrament that Jesus Christ is in our lives. And our response is to open our lives fully to him, invite him in, and say, do what you want in my life through this church. For the church is God's gift to us, a treasure for fellowship, for encouragement and opening every part of our life to him, for reminding each other that Jesus Christ is present and sharing what God is at work and doing in our lives, and for inviting others to come join us in the wonderful adventure of what it means to be followers of Jesus Christ. It is a treasure. Church. Every church is God's treasure. May we respond to it with part in communion. To take the bread and the juice is to receive Jesus Christ. In the receiving, I invite you to open more fully to Christ. Invite him in and see what he wants to do in us all.
Mm-hmm.